Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad to have you. As you can see from the title, today we are building a funky suburban house in The Sims. It is kind of a big house because it is for my Total Drama Island save, and it is the house where Gwen, Izzy, LeShawna, Bridgette, and Geoff are all going to live. So it is a 4-bedroom house with a kind of a big living space. I have a reference photo for the floor plan, but not for the interior or the exterior. So after I get the floor plan down, it is basically all freestyle from there. So yeah, I spent a lot of time fidgeting with the floor plan, and honestly kind of an equal amount of time kind of deciding what I wanted the interior vibe to be and how I wanted it to be decorated, as well as the exterior too, although that was a little bit easier because it was, you know, simpler. And yeah, a lot of the fidgeting that I did with the floor plan was the proportions of the rooms in relation to each other. I at first made all of the corridors inside 1 tile wide, but I don't usually like hallways to be that narrow in The Sims. They just feel really claustrophobic to me, and you can't really decorate them when they're that narrow. So they started out 1 tile wide, but I end up widening them to be 2 tiles wide and just sort of adjusting the room sizes around that so they're a little bit more spacious, and I will hopefully be able to decorate them a little bit more effectively, and they won't be so cramped. It won't look so much like a rat maze in there, you know what I mean? In this video, I did the floor plan, the exterior, I decorated the kitchen, and I decorated the bathrooms, but I didn't decorate any of the other rooms, and I didn't do any landscaping because, truthfully, it took me 2 hours to record what I did build, and it was so long. So I am anticipating the rest of the house to be another part, maybe even 2 more parts, depending on how long it takes me. I don't have a reference, like I said, for the outside of the house, which means I don't have a reference for the landscaping either, so that's going to be another sort of freestyling situation that hopefully won't take me too long, but whatever, you know what, we'll see. It took me as long as it did with the interior because, like, again, with the freestyling and like just sort of like making creative decisions about what I wanted the inside of the house to look like took me so much longer than it probably should have. But it's been such a long time since I've built a house where I didn't have, you know, some sort of reference. Like the last house that I built was those log cabins. And those cabins, I had a reference photo for the exterior of the house, and while I didn't have one for the interior, it didn't really matter because the exterior kind of lent itself to at least like a floor plan on the inside, and then I was able to go off of that and sort of the like log cabin vibe to make it work, but I don't really have that luxury here. I literally only have a floor plan, and so then it's just like, well, make it work. I went back and forth about what windows and what door to use at the front of the house for way too long. I wanted to do a bay window, but I also knew that I didn't really have a window in my catalog that was going to be exactly what I was picturing. Eventually I changed the wall height so that I could use the bay windows from the Laundry Day pack, and they're like a square bay window rather than like a hexagonal or an octagonal one, and I think those work really well. And after I placed those windows, that kind of decided the vibe, you know what I mean? Because I started out with these more classic sort of windows, but then when I switched to the more like kind of funky bohemian but like also kind of modern windows, I was like, okay, now I can see the vision. It's all coming together. And you'll see later when I do the porch that I did end up putting columns on the outer corners, but not the like inside of the porch by the stairs. So it looks a little silly, but I will fix it before I upload the house to the gallery. So you guys don't have to worry about it. I saw it as I was editing and I was like, why did I do that? Why didn't I add the columns by the stairs? It makes the porch look like it's like floating almost. It's really bizarre. But I will fix it, so you guys don't even have to worry about that. It's not up on the gallery yet because it's not finished, but as soon as it is finished, then it will be up to download, just like all of my other builds. And since this was sort of a longer build and this is going to be kind of a longer video, I wanted to finally take the chance to talk about the health issues that I have been experiencing, the ones that took me away from this channel and are still kind of taking me away from my other channel. I have been kind of vague about them because I just wasn't ready to talk about it yet, but this last month I got some concrete diagnoses and some treatment plans in place. So yeah, it just feels like the right time to talk about it. So I will start at the beginning. Basically, last summer, I guess trigger warning if you don't want to hear about like menstruation, but I mean, whatever, get over it. I'm kidding. Wow, that was insensitive. But last summer, I started experiencing some really irregular periods. I was having really short cycles, and one of them was like 15 days long. And if you're not familiar with the average length of a menstrual cycle, that's like half as long as it's supposed to be. And so I like panicked and I went to the emergency room and they referred me to a gynecologist, and that just sort of like kicked off my sort of like health journey, if you want to call it that. And when I started seeing the gynecologist regularly, I basically got like a physical exam and they were like, okay, well, everything's fine, but obviously you're having these issues, so let's do a bunch of blood tests. And so I got my blood drawn a bunch of different times, and they were basically checking all of my like metabolic everything, all of my various like minerals and such that are in my bloodstream, and also my hormone levels. And through that, we figured out that I actually have PCOS, which stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. I ended up getting an ultrasound done to check for cysts. I didn't have any cysts, but I do have the potential to develop them at a much higher rate than people who don't have PCOS, basically. And after I got that diagnosis, we started a treatment plan for that. And it's not something that has a cure. There's not really a way for me to just like suddenly not have PCOS anymore. But there are ways to mitigate it and sort of take care of the symptoms. So that's basically what I'm doing. And just sort of trying to maintain a more normal hormone level with like various treatments, and also maintaining my diet and honestly exercising a lot more than I used to. But the other piece of the puzzle, and part of the reason it was so difficult for me to exercise, is that I ended up getting my blood drawn again. And when I got my blood drawn, it was around the new year. They were checking my thyroid. And after having my thyroid tested and having all of my thyroid hormones checked and my thyroid antibodies checked, it was discovered that I have something called Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune disease that impacts my thyroid and my thyroid's function. And basically what that means is that my immune system is attacking my thyroid and inhibiting its ability to do what it's supposed to do and produce all of the hormones that it's supposed to produce. And so I actually have hypothyroidism because of the Hashimoto's disease, if that makes sense. And that comes with like a whole slew of symptoms, basically. But one of the big ones is fatigue. And so it's always kind of been difficult for me to exercise for my entire life. And, you know, it's something that I've been insecure about in the past because it's something that I got shamed for a lot growing up. And it's something that I never really gave much thought to. I always just sort of assumed I just didn't like to exercise because, I mean, it's kind of true. It bored me a lot. I never really enjoyed going to the gym. I used to go with my friends in high school occasionally, but not as often as I probably should have. And I was in ROTC in high school, and so I didn't go to a regular gym class at school. I only did, we called it physical training, PT, twice a week. And so, you know, I didn't really ever have a very active lifestyle. And then after I graduated high school and I went to college, I sort of assumed that my fatigue and my avoidance of exercise wasn't necessarily because I didn't like to exercise. It was because I was so worn out from college. But, you know, all of those years of only walking around for, you know, 30-ish minutes every couple of days rather than, you know, 20 to 40 minutes every single day, it compounds and starts to cause a lot of issues. And so even though I've like always had these illnesses, these are illnesses that I was born with, they're genetic, the symptoms compounded and started to get worse basically because of the symptoms themselves, if that makes sense. I wasn't necessarily able to manage my symptoms, and so they continued to get worse, just sort of in like a cycle, a self-fulfilling loop. But because now I know what's going on, and my doctors are all on the same page, I am taking a thyroid hormone supplement that has fixed me a lot. I will be completely honest. It's made my life so much easier. I'm really grateful for it. I've only been taking it for a few weeks, but I've already noticed a really big difference in a lot of different ways. Like my fatigue, for example, it's still pretty bad, but it's a lot better than it used to be. I'm able to walk every day, and it's a lot easier than it has been in the past. And I'm able to do a lot more just like tasks around the house, which is really cool. I think I've noticed a difference in my depression. Not really sure, but that is one of the big symptoms. And it could be that I just haven't noticed it because it's only been a few weeks, but you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. The other big symptoms that go along with that are a weakened immune system, which I always knew that I had. When I was growing up, my mom used to call me, air quotes, medically fragile, which is pretty funny looking back. But basically it's because I would get sick a lot as a kid with all sorts of illnesses. I had really chronic ear infections for a long time. And when I say really chronic, I mean like I had 1 to 2 ear infections every year from the ages of like 5 to like 8 or 9, basically. And I had pneumonia when I was like 8, I think, or 9. I can't remember. I was in the 3rd grade. And it was pretty bad. I've also had bronchitis, I've had laryngitis, I have just sort of always had like rickety joints, and so my knees get injured a lot. And I kind of perpetually had a cold for the whole time that I was in high school and the whole time that I was in college. And so I'm just sort of used to having a body that's like in shambles all the time, but it turns out that my whole body's not in shambles, it's just my thyroid, and it's like causing a domino effect of everything else to sort of get toppled. So it's one of those things that it's really good to know what's going on. It's nice to have an idea of, you know, concretely what's causing my problems. And it's nice to finally be able to actually do something about it as well. But, I mean, it still does suck to know that it's something that is permanent. I can't just take a magic pill and my thyroid is fixed. Instead, I have to take a not magic pill every single day for the rest of my life. And my thyroid won't be fixed, but it might work a little bit better, you know? And part of that is sort of this, like, grief process that I've been going through where I've had to manage the expectations that I've had about myself and my life going forward, and also sort of retroactively as well. And I've always been kind of a perfectionist. I've been really hard on myself forever. And it's even harder when it feels like you are trying as hard as possible to be the best version of yourself, be the most productive version of yourself that you can be, but there's this physical barrier that is preventing you from doing that. And when that physical barrier is yourself, there's a whole other slew of things that you need to work through. You know what I mean? And I obviously, like, I don't blame myself for having this genetic disorder. I don't blame my family whom I'm inherited it from. Like, it's fine, you know? It's not the end of the world that I have these diseases. But it does mean that I've sort of had to rewrite the script of my life and the plan that I've had for myself going forward. A big part of that plan and a big part of that script was that I always planned on having kids. I always planned on having some of my own biological children and also adopting a couple of children as well. I always kind of wanted to do both. And in the last year, finding out that I have 2 different diseases, not one, but 2 diseases that negatively impact my fertility and make it so that it is going to be more difficult for me to have my own children biologically. It really sucks. It's really hard to deal with. I have definitely been grieving a version of myself and a version of my future that I had in mind. Because the version of myself and the version of my future that I had planned was myself as this mother, right? And it's not to say that I can't still adopt kids. If it does come down to the wire that I'm not able to have my own biological children, of course I can adopt children. It's not that big of a deal. But it kind of is, because it's still different from the expectation that I had for myself, if that makes sense. And so even though I'm completely willing and able to adopt children, that doesn't change the fact that that's not necessarily what I had planned for myself in the long run, you know, because like I said, I always sort of planned on doing both, and to find out that I might not have the option to do both, that my hand is probably going to be forced to do only one of those things. It sucks, you know, it sucks to have my choice and my agency taken away from me, and it especially sucks to have my choice and agency taken away from me by something that I have no control over either, you know? There's not anything that I can do to correct my fertility other than continue to treat my illnesses and hope for the best, you know what I mean? But I'm already 25, and so unfortunately, the odds are against me. Realistically, even if I didn't have these fertility issues, I only have 10 more years of my, you know, ideal fertility window left anyway. And so with these illnesses, my window is even narrower. And again, there's a chance that I don't really have a window at all. And so it's been a lot of going back and forth with myself about, like, feeling really terrible, but also not trying to get too down on myself because it's not that big of a deal, but it also kind of is. And that also, you know, being compounded by the fact that a symptom of the Hashimoto's is depression. I've very much been pushing through this, like, slog for the last year. And that does mean that YouTube has taken a back seat. And that really sucks too, because this is something that I really enjoy doing, and I really enjoy talking to you guys. I enjoy making things for you guys. I enjoy playing The Sims, and I enjoy writing essays. And it almost was another cycle, another loop, of me not being able to do this thing that I love, and so then I feel worse, and then when I feel worse, I'm not able to do the thing that I love, and so on and so forth. And so I've basically just been stuck in these loops, these cycles, forever. And it's just that the most recent one included me feeling depressed and therefore not being able to make YouTube videos, which made me depressed. And, you know, I'm not gonna lie and say that making YouTube videos is always, you know, the most incredible thing in the world, because it does kind of suck when I spend an entire week making something and then I don't get very many views, I don't really get very much engagement. It's like, okay, well, why do I keep doing this? But I have to keep in mind that there are people who enjoy what I do. There are people who enjoy what I'm making. And they enjoy it as much as I do. And even if those people didn't exist, I still enjoy doing it. And so, you know, at the end of the day, I'm having fun, and that's all that matters. And yeah, I think that's basically it. I mean, I feel a lot better now, and that's why I'm in a place where I'm able to talk about it finally. So I'm sorry if you've been like on tether hooks every time I mention it because you're like frustrated that I'm being really vague. So here you go, all of the vagueness is cleared up. I have an autoimmune disease and also PCOS. So now you know, now I know, there's no vagueness. It's not a secret. And yeah, I didn't want anybody to think that I was keeping it a secret, because it's not like I'm ashamed. It doesn't need to be a secret. I just have been going through a lot. It's been kind of an emotional roller coaster, and so it's been really difficult to talk about. I haven't really even talked about it very much with the people in my real life because of all of the same reasons, basically. It's difficult, and it's kind of scary, and so it's just not something that I've been very forthcoming about, basically. But yeah, I will stop rambling and maybe talk about the build a little bit. Especially as we are getting towards the end here. So, like I said, I did the kitchen and the bathrooms, and in the kitchen I did a blue and yellow color scheme. I obviously did the exterior of the house yellow, and so I kind of wanted to keep that throughout the whole house, but I didn't want it to be too much yellow because I don't really think that that works as a color scheme for any of the Sims that are actually going to live here, because I also wanted to keep the characterization of the Total Drama Island characters that are going to live in this house. So it's yellow because I like it, but it's not too yellow because I didn't want to push it. And in the bathrooms, all of the bathrooms are kind of a blue, white, and like dark gray or black color scheme just to match those tiles, which I have never used before, but they are really cute. So I'm glad that I was able to like pull them out this time. I think they look adorable. And with these subway tiles too, the blues match so well. At first I thought I was only going to use the subway tiles in the corners where I was putting the showers, but I ended up using them for the entire room for both of the smaller bathrooms. And then in the larger bathroom, I did keep them sort of on that back wall where the shower and the tub go, and then the rest of the walls I did a light gray color. It's like almost white. But it, I think, looks, it makes sense. And I was sort of unsure about which shower to use for each of the bathrooms, but I ended up using that, like, stall shower in both of the smaller bathrooms just because it made more sense space-wise, and then I used a corner shower in this larger bathroom because, again, it just made more sense space-wise. I needed the stall shower in the smaller bathrooms because of the way that it opens and the way that the Sims actually get into the shower, and the way that the corner showers are all oriented. It's so weird to me that the corner showers are all oriented to be in like a left corner, you know what I mean? So if you try to put them in a right hand corner, the wall of the shower isn't against the wall, it's just in the middle of the room. and it looks stupid. It's so annoying. And so, yeah, that's why I went with the stall showers and the smaller bathrooms. I did play test this bigger bathroom just to make sure everything is accessible. That's why I ended up turning the bathtub around the other way, because when I had it the first way, it's not accessible. The Sims can't use it, but I fixed it. And there's also a decorative cabinet that I end up putting in this bathroom that looks like it blocks the door, but it doesn't, I promise. I play tested it. The Sims can get in and out, and it's not a big deal. And this bigger bathroom is going to be Geoff and Bridgette's bathroom. So that larger bedroom in front is going to be theirs. The other larger bedroom at the front of the house, I think, is going to be LeShawna's bedroom. And then that little bathroom in the hall is going to be hers as well. And then these other two smaller bedrooms are going to be for Gwen and Izzy. And they are going to share that sort of galley style bathroom that's at the end of the hall on this side of the house. So that is my plan. The color scheme in this bathroom obviously is the blue and gray, but I threw some pink accents in there as well, just for Geoff and his pink color scheme, because like I said, this is going to be his bathroom, so I wanted to make it look like Geoff actually lives here and that he actually uses it. I ended up going with this little medicine cabinet on the wall there, which I think I've done in other builds where I have like a big mirror in the bathroom and then a little medicine cabinet off to the side. After I did it, I was like, wait, didn't I do this when I built Heather's bathroom as well? I think I did. I can't remember though. And I ended up doing the same thing in Gwen and Izzy's bathroom as well too, just because so many of the mirrors that have little like medicine cabinets on them, they're too low. You put them on the wall and they are like clipping through the bathroom faucet, and I don't like that. And so I always end up going with a different mirror because it doesn't clip through the sink, you know? I wasn't sure which cabinet to use here, but I ended up going with this one from Laundry Day, just because it was like the right size, you know? The tall, narrow one just didn't make sense to me. And as much as I like the ones from the Parenthood pack, I think they're really cute and they would have matched the sinks. It just also wasn't quite the right vibe. I don't know. I like the one long cabinet rather than the two shorter ones. I added a bunch of clutter to the end of the cabinet here and then ended up adding a clutter tray instead, just because I realized after I placed all those little objects, like, wait, there's an item that's all of those items in one. I don't have to place them individually. And so I just did that. And yeah, this is LeShawna's bathroom, this little one here. It is the smallest bathroom, but I do think it ends up looking pretty cute in the end. It doesn't really have any room in it for much decoration or clutter, but I ended up putting a little framed photo in here just to fill up the wall and fill up the space a little bit. So there is that. So I did almost change the color of the sink because I changed the color of the mirror after I originally placed it, because I found that mirror that I liked from Cats and Dogs, and it's white and it has gold fixtures on it, and so the gold fixtures to me clashed with the silver fixtures on the sink, but I ended up keeping the sink that same white color anyway, just so that it still matches the other sinks in the house. And then this is Gwen and Izzy's bathroom. It is basically the same as all of the others in that it has the same color scheme, but I did put two hampers in here, one for Gwen, one for Izzy, and next to the sink I ended up putting a little makeup station, which I sort of went back and forth about what color scheme to make the makeup tray that I ended up using, because obviously Gwen and Izzy have very different looks. But I don't know. I ended up going with one that I think kind of works for both of them. And I did end up using that decorative cabinet from Parenthood, the one that I almost used in Bridgette and Geoff's bathroom, because it works better in this space. Obviously it's smaller, and so I can can just tuck it into the corner like that. As far as the wall goes in this bathroom, I wanted to put some like wall decorations or like a painting or something up on that long wall, because it just felt so empty, you know what I mean? But then I thought, you know what makes so much more sense, actually? A mirror. So I ended up putting a long mirror on that back wall, which maybe it's weird to have two mirrors in the bathroom. I don't know. I've been in lots of bathrooms that have two mirrors like that, one above the sink and then one on the back wall. And I think it just makes sense. And it was enough to me to fill the space out and make it work. So that is what we did. And then, like I said, I ended up putting a little framed photo in LeShawna's bathroom just to make it feel a little bit more finished and a little bit more decorated. And then that's it. That is the end of this build. I hope you liked it. Please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Give me a like if you liked it. Feel free to follow me on my Instagram if you so choose. Subscribe to me here. Subscribe to me on my essay channel. And I will see you guys next week. Bye!